Hello and welcome. This is Wirecast in the Wild. I'm Greg, and
I'm Matthew.
all day today. We've got those names today, and we're going to hold on to them today. We'll give them back some other time, but that's another story. So, welcome to Wirecast in the Wild. The intent of this live stream is for us to chat about things to do with Wirecast that interest us. What would we do differently if we could do it differently? What would we want in it? How do we fix problems for people? And in terms of fixing problems, we recently had a chat, Matthew and I, with some people at Telestream, and we were talking about things that are our top 10 kind of things to fix. Now, with that in mind, what we thought we'd do today is look at those things and talk about them in a way that we can document them more clearly, so that people watching this video, whether they be people here, regular viewers, or whether they be people at Telestream, they can understand more clearly what it is that we want fixed so that it can be fixed. And also get your comments and thoughts and viewpoints on those things, and you can share in the comments. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me.
Cool.
And I would say fixed is one aspect of it. Updated or perhaps modified as well. Definitely there's a couple things that are functional, but we could definitely get a better usability out of those. So I think you and I have some things that we agree upon would be better to do in certain other ways.
Yeah. Before we do start looking at that list, though, I just want to comment. Matthew and I were talking just before the stream today about chroma key, and I look absolutely awful. I was set it up differently as per Matthew's recommendation, but I'm pixelizing all along the borders there. Anyway.
Yeah, you've had a lot of problems with your chroma keying, and this chroma key is you're doing, but I'm finding on a daily basis my chroma key in Wirecast is outstanding. So I got no complaints on that one.
So I'm just going to change my black clip a little bit, and I think that looks a little bit better for now. That'll do. Okay, back to the point. So all of these things that we're going to talk about today are sitting in a Wirecast community tracker is what I call it. So this is a little website that I've put together, and it's got all of the bugs in there. And to make it easy to have a look at our top 10, I've put a hashtag in there. So if you search for hashtag P for priority, these are our top 10, or actually it's 11, but don't tell anyone. We snuck an extra one in.
I think P stands for Potter, if you ask me, just because they're important.
Well, of course. So let's get started. The first one, and these are in no particular, well, they are in a particular order. They're currently in vote order. So if you like these things and you want them to happen, go and click the vote button. And by the way, speaking of feedback, Matthew, that firewall-y thing is open for you to get into the chatty thing should you wish to do so. But I don't know if you've still got that link. I just remembered. I forgot to tell you beforehand.
I am sure I have that link somewhere. Where that is at this very moment, I'm going to mute my mic and do a quick search. So please go without me.
Okay, so let's move on. Over here, our first one, configurable audio fader allocations. What this one relates to is the ability to have the USB mixer match what you want with different shots audio configured so that it goes to exactly where you want it, not some kind of a random allocation to faders. So in the real world, if you were an audio guy and you wanted something to be on the screen, you configure, I want this particular audio channel to go to this place over there. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way in Wirecast, and what we want is for that to be configurable. There's one other reason why this is important. If you change shots, and let's say you take a camera out, and that camera is, let's say, a Blackmagic feed, and that camera has its own audio source coming in, even if you're not using that audio source, and let's say it allocates it to fader number 1, and you move that out of the way, all of a sudden, everything else is going to move down in the channel allocations. So what was on 1 disappears, what was on 2 goes to 1, 3 goes to 2, 4 goes to 3, and just imagine fade. Unfortunately, it does happen. So that's the first bug. How are we going with that firewall-y thing, Matthew? You still muted yourself, but that's all right. You've never sounded better.
Is this still available? Can I put my hand? No, I put me behind him down this time. You should be a green, and we should be a. Nope.
Oh, there we go. I'll go and put the shot up now that we've got that. Except I had something else there. I had a combined
You've never
shot
looked
that had.
so good.
Let me go and do that. Replace that with network. The wonders of live TV where you don't have a separate producer. There we go. Hello, Thunderbird 6. Okay, the wonders of technology. It works. So that's the explanation of that. Do you want to briefly comment about that one, Matty?
You have this bug more than I do. From my aspect of this, I think having a global audio input for me is a far better thing, because I'm using a lot of external mics, feeding them into a system, and then only 2 channels coming in. And so I like the hardware aspect of being able to fade in, fade out. It's a different workflow, it's a different path, but I can definitely see how this fader allocation would definitely come in handy. Yeah.
I mean, just think from a simple perspective. Just pretend you didn't have the outboard and you had a hardware Akai MIDI mixer. You're fading something down, and someone else who might be controlling the video shots separately goes and changes a shot. And the thing that you're halfway through fading all of a sudden becomes something else. That's the basic end result of this bug.
I completely get where that's coming from, and this is exactly why I think I try to avoid having any audio coming through my video sources for Wirecast. It's been one of those ongoing things that ever since the original Logitech cameras were always, hey, cool, it's always on for Blackmagic, but not for the audio, for the webcam. Let's just feed everything into the same system, control my delays, especially if I have to have a delay due to like a web camera or an IP camera.
Yep. Okay, second one off the rank, we've got over here more template placeholders. It's funny that this one is one of the ones in our list, and I literally got an email this morning from someone asking about a solution for this, and I'm going to see if I can get that email up. For those who watch my or drone content in general, you would be familiar with the infamous Ken Heron. Let me see if I can get this email over here. There we go.
That was a large picture, by the way, you had in that email.
That's the one he sent me.
Yep. It was a very large picture.
So this is Ken sending me an email, and he's saying, I need A, B, C, and D template for tonight's show with regard to his guests. At the moment, he's got A, B, C. Even if you do have A, B, C, pardon me, I didn't have my cough button ready. Even if you do have A, B, C, there's no, if you're doing right-click replace template, as opposed to clicking on an individual sub-item in the shot layer, it won't let you replace the second A. It just doesn't exist as an option. So this was a real example of someone wanting this feature today. And yeah, the other reason for it as well, if we have a look at virtual sets. So Virtual Setworks, who's a Wirecast partner, they have virtual sets, and I use a virtual set for my regular show. Something that looks a little bit like that, although we're not in there the way we would normally be in there, but you get the idea. And the challenge is that some of these virtual sets, it looks good. Nice room. Yeah. The challenge is that if you're using a virtual set, and we'll get out of that room now, if you are using a virtual set, you need more than 3 placeholders. So they've got sometimes 4, 5, 6 different TV monitors, and you want to be able to control what goes into each one of them, do an easy template replace. The templates at the moment, you cannot configure it because there's no more than 3 placeholders supported. That's why we want this one. And the email that I showed you from Ken, that's why he wants that one.
On my part, this is less of a big deal for me because most of my content is I create a lot of overlays and graphics, but I do it manually. And I think for the most part, I can create my own placeholder objects on a layer. It would be nice to have, hey, cool, right click, change the little tiny thing like you've been doing for your stuff.
Mm.
But scaling, right? And we have that coming up. That's one of the other features, bugs that we've been finding in this. And I think a lot of the cases, these custom templates that are in there, we've been begging for them for ages.
Mm.
I remember back in version 6 or 7 in the beta group that you and I were in, we were talking to them about, hey, can we create custom ones and save them, right? Because at one point I was doing this, and I still do for some of my events, a very vertical, almost vertical video, but not cropped of a presenter standing at a podium with their laptop in front of them. And then to the right of them or left, depending on which direction the screen was, it would have a larger 16 by 9 or 4 by 3 of their slide deck, lower
Mm.
third, etc. And it would be nice to have even those two as a potential template to say, here's shot A, here's shot B, go, right? And I was never able to do that. Um, we can create placeholder content now by just having an image file or an NDI source, and then you just save that, and then right click on it in the shot list and replace footage. But the problem there is that the scaling doesn't turn out correctly. And the thing that the templates, like you have validly said, templates say, hey, cool, reset this template, meaning that it'll reset the dimensions, the
The
scaling
scaling.
to
There's
fit
one.
all of that stuff.
There's one other thing missing from templates, though. You can't actually store cropping inside a template definition. It's not supported.
Oh, interesting. Because that would be another thing for me, for my shots. Yeah,
Yeah,
I know
I
it's a
agree,
16 by 9
100%.
and it's cropped this much off to the left and right, dead smack in the middle right there, right? And
But
that's,
there's another fix to that which relates to another feature request that I've put in, which is loopback video elements. The ability to go and create a composite video element where you crop it, and then it's available as a virtual video element that you can put in somewhere. So just imagine your template doesn't support cropping, no problem. Your virtual video element is pre-cropped, and it goes and gets put on the template, and everyone's happy.
yeah. So a way to get away from the cropping to avoid this is to have and I had a bug request in for a feature request in this for ages, but a mask.
Mm.
So back in version 5, they removed the ability to have a mask in Wirecast. And then what ended up happening is several versions later, I had just done this recently. Oh, there is a way to do a mask. I can't remember what it's actually called at the moment. I don't know if you were in that conversation with them or not, but it's in there, and no feature requests or no feature submission says, "Hey, you can do this now." There was no updates to it. There was nothing. So if I pull up my content here, and it's just a Matt. It's a me
Correct.
with an E, right?
Yeah.
And you can have the rounded corners, you can do the drop shadow, the heart, etc., or you can do a browse. And that browse obviously gives you a file that you can go in and change and select your own custom thing,
It's
which could
interesting.
be that crop.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because inside the virtual setworks set packs, they actually have what they call matte layers, which are basically alpha channels with all of that kind of stuff. And alpha channels is something we'll get to later. But let me move on just for a brief moment. And here's one of your favorites.
Ha. Yeah. Fonts in general. Let's be clear. It's not just this one. This one is one of my big ones that I've been submitting since version 5. The ticket was originally submitted in a platform that Telestream isn't even using anymore. Yeah.
Okay. Now tell me what the problem is and how,
Sure.
how it impacts you.
So let me get comfortable for this one.
Fireside chat.
The current Wirecast way of managing typefaces and fonts is you need to choose a system font. That system font can be anything that you have properly loaded on your computer. This means that typefaces that are brand typefaces that are provided by a client, such as Universe, Frutiger. There's a couple of ones. I work with a larger company that I'm not going to bring up because I don't want to be name dropping here, but that provide the font that they have had custom made for them. To do titles and branding elements to this, they need the condensed version, they need the extended version, they need not just bold, but like semi bold to follow their brand identity guidelines. And when you put something in Wirecast and select the typeface and then it changed the variation on it, the bold and the italic or bold italic are the only ones that will show other than the normal one. So you can't do a condensed. A condensed turns into a bold, or a condensed is a normal, unless you do a bold condensed, in which case it's a bold. So that's a big, big issue where brands can't be followed. In order to do those events, I need to have Illustrator open and be saving PNGs on the fly, or be running something like NDI out of New Blue's titler, which is another problem because the first couple of frames of that freeze and lock up. So it just, fonts have been a nightmare for me for doing any events that need a brand.
Yeah. So this is really important from a corporate identity perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That one's pretty self-explanatory. Let's see if we can go to the next one. And the question mark.
Shall I try to reproduce this by refreshing my page on my end?
So everyone who's used Wirecast at some time has had in fact, let me go and do it. Here we go. There you go. There's a question mark. So whenever an input source disappears, and Matthew, you've never looked so good. Whenever an input source disappears, this is what we get. Now, I get it.
Never going to get old.
Yeah, I get it that there is a need to let the operator know that there is a problem, that an input source has vanished. But my personal viewpoint, and I didn't think of this before, but you're absolutely right in what you said once before to me, Matthew, is you want to have the last frame of when that source was there continue to be displayed on the live output. But on the preview monitor, you can display a question mark to let the operator know, hey, this is questionable.
And not only that, but have it recover. Currently, and we've seen this in the last broadcast, where the Rendezvous dropped the video from me. It recovered in less than a frame or two, and the live view changed the question mark, but your preview changed back to my content in my video, including all of the chroma keying and stuff like that.
Correct.
So this used to always happen with audio too. If you had an audio source on a channel that would disappear, the question mark would show up on the audio, meaning that nothing was missing for video. So I've been catching up on an old role-playing video recently, Critical Role. And I was looking at some of the old video from the last campaign, and sure enough, during like a transition, you could see they have layers that were underneath that were currently selected. And because they were using smooth transition back in the day, that the transition would show whatever was in the previous or underneath during a transition from one shot to another. So the question mark was showing up in shots that weren't even live.
Yeah. Okay. I think we got it.
So to go back to that, so the three solutions that we've said to Wirecast, at least given our opinion on, is A, keep the last frame.
And I think that's the smartest option.
I think that's definitely the default option. B, make the video just disappear. Or C, have it stop at the last frame, but also when you have a video source that is selected, allow for a placeholder, right? That can be a PNG, that can be something else. If you
a customer-defined placeholder.
Correct. That can be and by default, again, it should be like the last frame. But if it wasn't, say, it's just a silhouette of a person, or it's their logo, or it's
configurable per input as well, so that when Matthew disappears, you have a shot of Matthew. If I disappear, you have a shot of me.
Yep. Absolutely.
Love it. Okay. I'm going to go to our next one. This one, I originally had this one entered as something related specifically to ProRes graphics. So I have, for my regular show, a number of ProRes alpha channel related video objects that I stack on top of each other. And I noticed that every time I was doing this, the CPU went through the roof and nothing was viewable. And you recently saw something similar to this as well.
I have, yes. I've been recently doing some testing. I think I mentioned this last time with 360 live streaming, seeing the best quality, how to make sure I can use the right tools for it. And Wirecast is obviously one of the two tools that I've been using that can at least handle it. And by handle it, I mean very minimally handle it. The system with a 1070 GTX on this computer can't really handle this at all, because you need to do 4K live streaming. Now, in general, with nothing else selected, a web camera like this, that's 4K, the output's great. Nice, solid stream, 30 frames a second. But as soon as you throw a 4K media over top of it, either the native resolution of the camera or the native resolution of what YouTube, in this case, allows, the system cripples. Frame rate goes just dropping right down, and the CPU goes to 100%. So I'm like, this is interesting. So I dropped the video or used a web camera, same video, completely crippled. And it's the video playback that just takes out the system. And this is both ProRes, the RGBA, and Cinephile as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm not familiar with Cinephile as a different method of encoding, so I'm not familiar with it.
So Cineform, sorry.
Okay, Cineform.
Sorry, I don't often use these either. I'm normally ProRes, but Craig in the forum had said, hey, try Cineform to see if that works for you, see if it works any better for you.
And you had the same problem with that. So it's not related to, it's more a generic alpha channel related problem.
Yeah.
Okay. That would be a good one to get that one fixed. And let's go back to our screen and see what's next. I can go and click the right button. There we go. And get rid of us for a minute. So this one actually occurred today, but you may not have noticed it. So when I'm doing shot transitions and I do them as a hard cut as opposed to a smooth or cross dissolve, there's something within Apple hardware where this, for whatever reason, and I'll do smooth dissolves now, there we go. There's something in Apple hardware encoders that causes the traffic to go up to a really ridiculous peak. So, thank you. So, for example, I'm currently setting my bandwidth to 1.25 megabits per second, and for that brief moment, if I've got the statistics open, it'll go up to 10, 20 megabits per second sometimes. But very, very briefly and very, very momentarily. And if you don't live in a country that's got first world internet, yeah, I am jealous, very jealous. If you don't live in a country with first world internet and you've got to deal with that, that's when this is a big problem for you. So the question is, what do you do about it? Do you let it ruin your stream? So for example, in today's show, I've got 521 dropped frames. Do you spend large amounts of money to buy hardware to do what Wirecast should be doing? Do you fix the problem in Wirecast? I would like to hope we can fix the problem in Wirecast, but to be fair, it's not their problem, or at least it's not of their causing. So this is an Apple bug, right? So the Apple hardware encoder is saying, I'm giving you this amount of data. The question is, do you go knowingly that you've got it configured at 1.25 megabits per second and throw all of that data at the network interface with a plug and pray kind of, yeah, it'll be okay? Or is there something you can do?
So it's interesting that this is coming up again as well today. I had a great conversation of bandwidth and encoding with a colleague of mine recently who's really into gaming. He's doing a lot of gaming streaming on Twitch, and he's using Streamlabs OBS to do this, which has integration and works directly with Twitch. Um, Using a wizard, he says, "I want to use what the enforcement is of the platform." And it's a
Hmm.
constant bit rate with using like 4,500 kilobits per second. Um,
Hmm.
Now, I know and you know that Apple and a lot of the H.264 encoding is no longer constant bit rate. There is no such thing as a constant bit rate in modern encoding. It is
Yep.
all variable.
Yep.
Um, I'm watching his stream on this set, like in the settings of the URL of like the attributes of it, constant bitrate, CBR, and he has completely. You can see it. It's fluctuating between 4,000 and up to 7,500 kilobits per second for his gaming stream. The quality
Hmm.
was amazing, but there was absolutely peaks. Absolutely. And it happened to be because the content on the screen. Now, if you have the hardware that's using an encoder, that the encoder, Wirecast doesn't write, right? Like they do not write the encoder. They implement the encoding like FFmpeg to do hardware encoding, and you can run this from a command line.
Yep.
If you're passing a command to FFmpeg to encode video constantly, do you go to the terminal command to make that update? Like it's the encoding software that needs to do that. And at the moment, H.264 is not going to be changing. Apple just released that whole, what is it, the HLS encoding for this year. About they're probably going to be focusing their attention on that, not on H.264, or at least not
Correct.
on that type of encoding.
Not
So
in the
we're probably going to have
foreseeable
to look for
future.
something
Yeah.
else.
Mm. So here's my personal view. The answer, in my view, is something that I would call bandwidth smoothing. So you've got the capability to detect what is the actual peak physical capability of your outbound network. There's various ways of doing that. Or you could configure it and say, hey, I want the bandwidth set at 1.25 megabits per second as a target bandwidth. That's the existing configuration, but you should be able to either set or have Wirecast detect an actual peak bandwidth. And if that happens, then you can say, well, if we're exceeding that, we're going to actually start to buffer things locally rather than send more traffic than what the network can handle and have it drop TCP packets and then have TCP retransmissions, which in itself generates more traffic and makes it worse.
True. No, I don't know how, and this is just because I don't know the technicalities behind it. I don't know how Wirecast is sending the data to the encoding aspect of Wirecast, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what they're doing in that side of it. But if they're doing what I suspect, which is say, here's a rendered frame of content, I want you to
Mm-hmm.
encode this data,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're not able to determine like how that encoder does a variable bit rate. They don't have that power over
Correct.
that,
Correct.
right? So a smoothing of something out would be very
After.
difficult to do.
No.
They're not
After.
controlling the output of that either. They're sending all that data. Well, I guess they would be doing a bit of it. But if they're doing smoothing, then that smoothing is going to be interfering with the data that's being output.
Yeah, but here's where this is actually okay. So if you have a look at a YouTube stream, for example, YouTube has got X amount of buffering built in. So if you slow down your output to account for that peak and you drip feed it to them, they'll still be able to recover and get that data. So you've got your brief spike, it comes back down again. As long as it's not sending it to the point where YouTube's buffer is emptied, you're going to be okay.
Now, there's still going to be packet loss there, and a lot of people use that and they'll download that video. So if you're not sending frames or full frame data,
No, you're sending it. You're sending it. You're just buffering it and caching it. That's what I'm suggesting.
I getcha. That could be, ooh, maybe
Here's the
that would
thing.
have to be
Let me
I get
explain
what
it.
you're saying. No,
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. It's just that's going to be a lot of data because you're not talking. It's a here you're doing a transition. you're gonna like, here's a ton of information I'm gonna send you at the same time. It's this information is this size, and I'm gonna send it to you, right?
Mm.
So if you have that peak of information that needs to go through, and in your cases, we're seeing tens of times the size of what it would normally be,
Yeah.
there's a lot of hand exchange that needs to happen there to say, hey, listen, here's like the next 5 frames or 20 frames, or in this case, it would be half a second of frames, which would be 15 to 30
Mm.
frames of data, right? How that handoff and that coordination, if somebody has low
You don't have
bandwidth
to
on,
think
or
about it in terms of frames, though. At the end of the day, it's a network, and a network's a pipe, and networks have already got buffers, right? The only thing you're doing is you're controlling the maximum peak at which you're going to physically send that data to the far end.
yeah, and I don't disagree with this. I think that I agree with you that there is some things that maybe Wirecast can do for that, but this is purely an encoder issue. And what Wirecast would be doing is
That's the
fixing
root
something
cause.
on
Yeah, yeah.
it is. And it's a big thing to say, like, listen, there's clearly an issue with the encoding aspect of this. That needs to be solved. And you're saying there is, but Wirecast, can you add something to the buffering side of it?
I'll tell you where I think Wirecast still should do this and why. Yes, it is an encoder-related issue, but in bigger, general, broad terms, to be more resilient in terms of your network. If you are preventing spikes above your configured known maximum network capabilities, then that's going to help you overall. Even if it's not caused by the encoder and it's got some other root cause, doesn't matter. It's going to make you more resilient. Anyway, let's quickly go to our next one, which is, oh, I went to the same one. Let me try that again. Matthew. You want to talk?
Yes, I do. So NDI has been so good, and it's been so bad. Recently, now we've seen an influx of this in the forums of NDI issues, both delays on some cameras, not on other cameras. For me, I've seen issues with Skype coming in because a lot of the stuff, as you know, I end up using Skype, not Rendezvous, just for quality's sake. But the issue is NDI is a hit or miss. Now, I'm currently using it right now, and if my voice is not associated or not attached to the audio, it's because there is a slight bit of delay there. But I am finding it better and better every time I'm using it, except for its quirks. Now, Wirecast and Telestream have said that they have updated a bunch of it. They did some testing, and behind the scenes, they were like finding some bugs that were like 30-second delay on the audio, or on the video itself. And I'd never been able to replicate that. But I'm able to consistently replicate a half-second or full-second delay on content going to Wirecast compared to any other video software.
Can I add something else into the mix? So yes, there is a new NDI library. Agreed.
Yep.
If that was the only change that happened in that version of Wirecast, then I would say go fix it new tech. It's your problem. The challenge is that there were two changes at the same time. So previously, NDI was handled internally within the Wirecast main executable, but Telestream made a decision, and I think it was a good decision, the right decision to do from an architectural perspective, to pull that out of Wirecast and make it a separate standalone process. The challenge is it the NDI libraries? Is it the decision to change that architecture? I don't think we'll ever know, but that's part of my frustration of seeing this issue at the moment. And it's particularly visible with Skype. You've done a number of tests.
Cameras.
And some cameras. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I don't know. It might be an NDI HX thing. It might be a bandwidth thing, because I've also seen it, and I'm sure you might have seen this as well. If you change the stream bandwidth to the low bandwidth mode,
Mm-hmm.
the video itself is corrupt. It just doesn't work. It shrinks, it crops it, shrinks it, and has the top little corner. But the rest of the video area where the high resolution shows something is just bands of repeating content from the high resolution. It doesn't work either.
What's really confusing, you just mentioned bandwidth. Is it bandwidth related? Even if you've got Skype sending and Skype is on the same computer, so there are zero bandwidth concerns, we still see this delay.
Yep. Hardline Ethernet between two computers, not a problem. Heck, Wi-Fi from my phone, the NDI application on my phone, I finally got working.
Mm-hmm.
No issues. Skype coming in and some of the cameras that people have been saying, half a second, 3 seconds delay, 2 second delay, completely random. And interestingly, I've done recordings where during the video recording, it catches up to and then falls back. So it's almost as if it's desyncing or buffering something, playing it, and then losing it. So it's really weird.
Yeah. Next one on the list. This is one of our favorites, and we kind of briefly spoke about it before when we were talking about templates. Input scaling.
Yeah. Input scaling is definitely a daily issue. And it's interesting that it's happening. Essentially, content, when you load a content originally, if the content was not pre-known, so as an example, Blackmagic devices don't come pre-assigned to have the resolution already set. And NDI is the same thing. There has to be a connection, data has to be transferred, then that resolution is populated. So Wirecast currently sets it so that if it doesn't have information instantly, it sets the resolution to, I believe it's a 640 by 480 resolution that it sets it to, or 720 or something. And when the content comes to you, it scales it to that size. So a 1080p signal on a 1080p canvas comes in scaled to 40% or 60%. Now with the auto canvas sizing, that's another bug, which I don't think we've actually included into this, is weird. But that means you have to scale the content up. For you and your templates, that scaling basically means that every time you load in content that doesn't have an instantly known resolution, that scaling needs to be reset, or the template needs to be reset on that. Now, for me, I think a good way around it for you would be load your content in first. Don't just go right to your template. Add a new shot, bring in that Blackmagic device.
That works. I don't dispute that. Yeah.
Yeah, because as soon as you do that, that source, the information, the size of it is known to Wirecast, right? Today, though, we ran into a case where your NDI source from New Blue FX, the resolution took a second to kick in, and the original resolution, because it was an NDI source, was 46,000%.
Mm-hmm.
Let me repeat that. The resolution that it defaulted to was 46,000%.
Yep. So let's do this. I want to do a live experiment now. I'll just come back here. This is a camera. It's a medical device. You didn't think this show was going to go there. I have chronic sinus problems.
I'm still... Oh, okay. Oh. Okay.
And I'm turning very red. But anyway.
I was about to put my fire background on for a second there.
This is a camera, and it's got a little light built into it. And funnily enough, I actually use it with Wirecast because it is flipped, and I need to go and do rotation on it so that it can be used properly and I can actually see what I need to see. Now, I'm not going to use the camera in its intended purpose today, but I will add it into Wirecast. Now, no guarantee this is going to come up exactly as I want it today, but who knows?
Show Wirecast as you're doing this.
This is what I'm about to do. So let me get some stuff off the screen. Okay, we're going to click that shot. Okay, so we're going to click, I might zoom it as well just to make life a bit easier. Let's do that, and we'll look at this part of the screen. So we'll click plus. We're going to click video capture, and we've got, you can't see this little bit, but that's okay.
Here.
That's okay. Now I've got my little camera thing here, which you can see, but where is it? Oops, clicked onto the wrong thing. So the video settings of this have defaulted to 160 by 120. So this is exactly what you're talking about, Matthew, where it can't work out the right resolution and it's picking just the first one in the list for some reason. Now, this camera is not a particularly high-res device. You're not going to really use it for broadcasting. But then when you change it and existing proportions get...
You know, you might be able to create a new topic on something like Twitch for this type of content. Just saying.
Don't know that I'd want to do that. But anyway, let's go back to the fish tank for a moment. Look, video input scaling was the problem that we were talking about, and the challenge is that it's totally unpredictable. You got a new input source and it scales it in an unpredictable way. Yeah. It also detects the camera resolution in a way that is unexpected. I would personally expect the resolution to be detected at the highest resolution that is equal to or less than the canvas size as a default.
Correct. Now, so the other problem that is associated to the scaling is that when you have content that's coming from NDI or Skype or a camera, and you change that resolution, or it gets changed dynamically in the case of Skype, where Skype automatically detects your current bandwidth and it changes from a 1080 to a 720 back up to a 1080. That's the video, the content in Wirecast scales it in a weird way.
Yeah.
Only on the live view. On the preview window, it keeps the height. So if you create a shot, you crop it all up, you put an overlay over top of it, and have that nice packaged up. On the preview window, it'll be perfect. But if that resolution changes on the live view, it'll scale up or scale down, depending upon obviously the new resolution. Now, a competitor software, OBS, has the same issue, but they have a way of correcting this by setting, hey, when it does scale or with there is scale, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to scale to fit within bounds or fit outside of bounds? Like, what is the aspect ratio? And it's interesting because Wirecast doesn't need to have that if it uses the rules in the preview window.
Yeah. Okay. Scaling, a challenge. I'll leave it at that.
Yep.
Matthew, this is yours. And I'm going to be really blunt. You've mentioned this, you've briefly talked about it, and I was listening, but I haven't actually seen it. So I would love to replicate this today. Tell me, what are we doing?
Sure. So this is trivial. I'm going to fully admit this is trivial. So you've got Wirecast up right now. Yep. Create a new text layer. New text shot. Doesn't matter. There's a couple other things to do with text as well. We're not going to bring those up. Yep. So in here, scroll to the bottom of the, so in here, you have shadows, right? So click on the shadow, adding a new shadow there. Did you click on the checkbox?
I clicked on the checkbox.
I cannot see that you've done that on my side. Okay, so when you have that done, the three sliders are labeled, I believe it's just offset. I'm going to have to pull it up on my screen because you're, at least through Running View, I can't really read that.
Sure.
So can you read that off while I pull mine up? Can you
read it offset, off? Radius, and blur.
Okay. So without touching those things, what do you think they do?
The radius is how far away from the original text the thing is going to be.
Okay.
The blur is blurry. The offset, don't know specifically. I'm not a text guy.
Okay. So, and why do you think, so you're saying the radius is the distance, offset is the angle, and blur is the blur, correct?
Yeah.
So is that because the labeling, or is that because the content that's in it?
That's because I'm not looking at the content that's in it. That's me reading the labels and saying this is what I think it means.
Okay. So that's on that one. For
Mm-hmm.
me, radius for me shouldn't be radius. It should be angle. And it should be swapped with the offset. Offset to me, coming from a print side of things and a design side,
Mm-hmm.
offset is how the distance from the shadow is from the content, right? Angle or
Okay.
radius should be the angle that it's going. Radius is often used because you have a global light source that all content and all shadows should be associated to, and
Mm-hmm.
blur is just the blur of the actual thing. So
Yeah.
that's what it is on this one. But if you go and you create a brand new object, so just a background of a solid color, or it doesn't really matter. In fact, it might even work on this one, this layer itself here. Um, if you
Okay,
go
let's
to,
create a new solid color.
sure, under the
Mm-hmm.
second tab, there is a drop shadow option here,
Mm-hmm.
right? So now you have angle, which is a degree. And again, this is the one I agree with. The angle is associated to what angle that shadow is coming off of.
Mm-hmm.
The offset is the distance from the actual object, right? And then you have blur size and opacity, right? So what you're seeing here is offset is being used in two different ways,
Mm.
and angle is being used instead of radius, in my opinion.
Okay.
So it's basically just, in my opinion, I submitted this tiny little fix. I thought, oh, offset and radius should be swapped for the language. Maybe use angle for the term instead of radius, just to
Or at the
match
very
and whatnot.
least, it should be consistent.
Correct, right? And in this case, it isn't. And I
Yeah.
got a response from the engineer saying, "Oh no, that's the way it's supposed to be."
So it's inconsistent by design.
It wasn't a big bug. It wasn't like
It's
a
not a big bug,
game-ending
yeah.
thing. You can get around it. It's fine. It's a label to an input field. Like seriously, design like that.
Left.
I might
Tell
be
me
able
what.
to, but just turning my lights off. Oh wait, no, it's
Okay.
rendezvous. No, I think rendezvous doesn't have that issue.
Well, try it.
Um, hide me so you don't see my crotch shot.
Hang on.
Yeah, yeah. So I
Okay.
don't think you're not having the issue right now on my content, right?
No.
Cool. So if you are you bringing yours in via webcam?
I'm bringing mine in. It's a FaceTime camera.
Might have him with that.
So I've got a number of lights. If I turn just that one off, which is in front of me, I definitely go deep black and I don't turn grey.
Yeah, which is interesting. So I wonder if it's fixed. They might have fixed it in this version. Now I haven't tested it in this version, the latest 12.1.1. Or did I?
Mm.
I can actually do that.
Okay, while you're
Yep.
loading that up,
Go to the next one. Then. Go to the next one.
Okay. Go over here and we'll go to this final one is probably going to be recreated or reloaded as a new bug/request. Originally, Switch their video player to have NDI output. That was the request. That was my solution to a problem, and perhaps not the right solution. I'll explain the problem. When I'm doing my regular show, I've got video and I want to play that video content. Now, at the moment, if you want to have multiple videos that you're going to play in Wirecast, you currently need to add multiple shots and you activate the shot that you want to do. What if you've got 20 or 30 different video clips that you're going to use? Do you create 20 or 30 shots? That becomes unscalable. Ken Heron, who also uses Wirecast, his solution that he started doing was to use VLC, and he's screen capturing VLC. The alternative is to use NDI from VLC, which works really, really well on a Windows machine. But on a Mac, we don't have that option. NewTek haven't created an NDI plugin for VLC. So what do? I screen capture. Screen capturing works, but it's not necessarily ideal in terms of the CPU, the overhead, and the other screen artifacts. So you're pressing the play button and you see a little playback control on the screen for a brief moment and things like that. So my goal is to find out how can we play videos without having this kind of stuff. And the second part of that is kind of related to a loopback video element. So for example, if I'm going to have, let's say, a virtual studio using a Wirecast virtual studio, and I want to play a video on that screen, and then after that I'm going to change to a full screen object, I want to be able to send the same video source to both of those and to have it continue playing. That works fine if you're using an external video player, but if you're using anything else in Wirecast, it just doesn't work. So what's the answer? A video player within Wirecast with loopback controls so that you can create this virtual object and have it continue to play and have different shots use that virtual player as an input. And I kind of think of it as a virtual video player. I should probably get the question mark off the screen. There we go. So that's my kind of final one. I said we had top 10, but that was the 11th one. We're going back to your one now, Matthew, your black one.
Yeah, so this here, and you'll see it's a bit stuttering now. I'm actually going through Wirecast to get this effect. This is a Logitech C920, and you're going to see I'm going from colorful to black to like gray. That's the output from Wirecast. So the way that you can test this yourself, and you can actually see this if you have NDI installed and you can get access to a test pattern, there is a test pattern that you can do that looks like this. Now you'll see the far right-hand side and the far left-hand side, there are gray bars directly at the sides. Those should not be gray. They should be black, right? And what I mean by that is like the top left-hand corner should be 100% black. And the bottom side, there's like a gray and a black at the bottom. The one just to the left of that, just underneath the white, should be a deep, rich black as well, not a lighter gray.
Yep.
That's coming from Wirecast.
And you're getting this by getting something else to send that via NDI?
Correct. This is just the NDI test patterns.
Okay.
However, that being said, this is just a webcam going into Wirecast, and you can see that if it's
your shirt is gray.
Correct. My shirt is gray, but my shirt is like super dark navy black. And I get my lighting isn't the best right now, but it does mean if I have like a background like that, you can see that's definitely not the colors that should be. Right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, you want to turn your lights on and there we go.
Absolutely do that.
So we've reached the end of our wish list. Now, I want to briefly say this is our wish list of the things that we personally think are important. That doesn't mean that these are the only things that are important, but these are the things that would help our personal workflows. If you are interested and you would like to share some of your thoughts about what you think is important, comment on the video. We'll go and add those into the tracker that we've got, and if we think, we'll help lobby Telestream. And I just want to say, the fact that we're sharing this discussion here is not to say that we think there's a concern with Telestream or with Wirecast. At the end of the day, they're a company, they're producing software, and they've got resources that have got to do stuff, and they've got to pick which one gets done first. We're just giving our viewpoint. We want you to do these ones. And that's all very, very subjective. Any thoughts from you, Matty?
No, I think for the most part, I know I probably am one of the biggest whiners on the forum for this, but I think it really comes from a passion. I like the software. I like using it. I think it's probably the better of the available ones on the market today. And all I think you and I are trying to do is make a better product and help them do that, because it's something that
Mm.
we want to use, and it's something that we can see being of value to our workflow. And if you feel the same way, reach out, help us do just that, and I can promise you we'll be doing our best to make sure that we're looking out for you as much as we're looking out for ourselves.
Yeah. I'm going to put into the chat room the URL to this tracker. It's not officially supported by Wirecast, but if you could press the magic button on your thing, Matthew, and we'll put that on the screen. By the way, this is a great technique, using someone else to go and do that while I'm doing the production. Wirecast.gregkuhnert.com is a little website that I've put together, and it's what we've been showing today. So check it out. You can add something there yourself. It's just put it in and it'll go into the tracker. Anyway, that's all we got time for today. It's been fun. We both are passionate about Wirecast, and I am personally, I think it is the better of the products on the market. Like all things in life, I think there's a grass is always greener on the other side effect. If you're unhappy with one thing and you go and try another product instead, there will be other problems with that other product, no matter what it is. I personally think Wirecast is best of the bunch, and let's work with Telestream to make it the best of the best of the best. Anyway, that's all for now. It's been good. Thanks. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. And I probably need to go and get my title button over here. This is where we have that kind of clunk thing because I don't have a separate producer, and my laptop is now asking me to enter a password. So,
oh no.
Yeah, I know. There we go.
You could just move to a place that has good internet, and then we could sit and work together on this.
Yeah, of course. Anyway, thanks, guys. Bye-bye.